John Clayton of the Washington Post, longtime Hall of Fame NFL writer over at the Washington Post. He has 5 weeks remaining in the season. It seems like this season just started. Now it's just about to end. It's ended for Eagles fans. It seems like a long time ago. But NFL owners are starting to make changes, and he writes about teams that are possibly looking to make changes. Some already have, Broads. The Lions have fired their coach. We already saw Atlanta fired their coach. Jacksonville's GM got fired. So changes are coming. He did not include one team on that list, but I'm sure John Clayton watched that game last night and is hearing what's going on here in Philadelphia. And I wonder, John, if you are about ready to add Doug Pederson's name or Howie Roseman's name. Is Jeff Lurie thinking about things, seeing what's going on with his team and seeing what's going on around the league?
Yeah, I think you have to start thinking about it now. There's no question, because it's not going well. I mean, that's not good. Not going well is an understatement. It looked awful. And, because I had the column obviously came out Tuesday morning, and so I had to send it on before the game. And now that you look at the game, I think you have to put Doug Pederson, Howie Roseman, and other people under scrutiny right now. Carson Wentz's contract is going to almost be impossible to try to break. And so he's going to be there. But I think what you can see is Wentz looks terrible. Doug Pederson looks lost in the play calling. And even today, he admitted what's on the table is maybe having somebody else call the plays. And, he did that. You go back to when he was in Kansas City. Remember, Andy Reid hit this one stretch where he didn't think he was doing well at the beginning of the second half. And so what he would do occasionally would be let Doug call the plays for maybe a quarter or the second half. And I don't know, something needs to be done because that offense is awful.
It's really bad. And obviously, you're in a weird situation, I think, if you're the Eagles. Like, casual fans would say Howie Roseman has been the problem. They missed on DK Metcalf. He was there. They didn't take him. The Justin Jefferson was available. They went with Jalen Reagor. They took Jalen Hurts in the second round. Now they don't know what to do with him. But a lot of people feel like it's a collaborative effort in the Eagles front office. So if that's the case, who gets blame when your roster configuration is not what you want it to be?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the difficult thing that, certainly that Jeff Lurie has to start to decide, because if he's going to make a change, is it better? Because the one thing that is going to be tough for him is that if you let Howie go, I mean, Howie kind of runs the show both on the financial side and also the personnel side, but they've done a terrible job as far as drafting wide receivers. And certainly, letting, because I was even hearing last week that there's been internal rifts about Jefferson versus Reagor, with some wanting Jefferson, and Jefferson right now being one of the best rookies in the league this year, and Reagor just starting to come around but not doing well. You look at the receiver position, you look at the problems on the offensive line. I mean, certainly the defense looks good, but overall things aren't working out there. And as far as Pederson, I mean, is he to take the fall for the bad offense, the play calling, everything else? Jeff Lurie has a very tough decision to make if he needs to make a decision. But right now, this looks like a team that's looking like it's going to have a decision.
Considering Doug Pederson just won a Super Bowl a couple years ago, do you think it would be too quick to let him go? And I think the best way to kind of look at this is the question shouldn't be, do you keep a Super Bowl winning coach just because he won a Super Bowl? Does Doug Pederson give this franchise the best chance to win another one? But you still need to value that trophy at the same time. So do you think one bad season is enough for him to deserve losing that job?
Well, in the big picture, probably not, but you got to face the reality of the National Football League. I mean, John Fox took the Denver Broncos to the Super Bowl, and John Elway eventually fired him after a couple of years. And so, you have Super Bowl coaches that do well, and all of a sudden things start to go south. And this team, since the Super Bowl, has gone south. And so what do you do if you're Jeff Lurie? And so, I mean, I think it's a solid consideration right now. And even you can see the honesty of Doug Pederson when asked about it today. Even, basically said that he's had no reassurance that he can stay on as the coach after the season. And so he's got to be in the back of his mind, because I know for all South Jersey and all Philadelphia people around it are fans, they've pretty well, I think, made the decision that something's got to change, whatever it's going to be. In fact, I don't know, if you were to do a poll right now of the fans, what order would it come in? Howie Roseman, Doug Pederson, or Carson Wentz?
33 and a third for each.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, John, it seems to change by the day, by the week. I mean, every time they play, people start picking sides. And that's a good thing to bring up. John Clayton, the Washington Post, he's got a great article about, desirable landing spots, and you wonder how desirable Philadelphia would be with Carson Wentz. Before it was like, hey, we want to play because they have Carson Wentz, and now you mentioned it, they can't get rid of him. So if they want to make a major change, you would almost think it has to be either the coach or the GM. And then you mentioned the GM. It's hard to get rid of Roseman because he's done so much on the financial side. So it almost seems like Pederson is the guy. But my question for you is, John, does Pederson want to be here anymore? You have a whole article about jobs. Pederson's going to get a job. He doesn't need to go through this nonsense that he gets here in Philadelphia. He's won a Super Bowl. He could go and get softball questions in Denver or Chicago or something to that effect. He gets hammered here every week. He probably doesn't want to be here anymore.
Well, I think he wants to be there, but because I think he wants to stay loyal to Jeff Lurie and loyal to the players on this team. But and that's why it's probably favoring Doug Pederson over Howie Roseman, because think about the reality of what this team is going to be next year. They're $80+ million over the cap, and there's got to be a lot of changes. And this is now one of the oldest teams in the National Football League, and it's got significantly younger. I mean, basically, this team is going to have to start a rebuild next year. And are they good enough to do it with Carson Wentz? I mean, a couple of years ago, it looked great. I mean, Carson Wentz comes in, they rebuild, they get to the Super Bowl, even though he was hurt at the Super Bowl, but they won it with Nick Foles. And now you look at it and you go, okay, who's going to be standing at the end of all the cap casualties? I mean, there's not going to be any Deshaun Jackson, and that Alshon Jeffrey is going to be gone, and you figure some casualties that come on the offensive line. That Zach Kerr is probably not going to get a contract extension. And then, the one strength of the team, they're probably going to have to make some sacrifices too, and that's going to be on defense.
You look at desirable spots. You have a list at the Washington Post. The Chargers, they have Justin Herbert. You've got obviously the Falcons. They've got some pieces on offense, I guess. And they've been playing well, by the way, the last couple of weeks there. So you got the Bears. They have that great defense, but they got quarterback problems. What teams right now that need a coach seem to be the most desirable for you?
Two teams in the AFC West. That would be the Los Angeles Chargers and the Denver Broncos. Because the one thing is going to be, this is going to be one of the most difficult assignments next year for anybody going there and anybody going to any team, because cap may be down to $175 million. You can pretty much let more players go than you can probably sign. And of course, the one thing is that the free agency isn't the Pandora's box that everybody has now found out to be. So even the teams that have the best cap room right now, which would be the Jaguars and the Jets, are they desirable as bad as their team is? I mean, sure, you can get players, but it can't at all fit together in what's going to be a very tight cap. But the reason for the Chargers being the top team is that, one, you've got Justin Herbert. You've got a great young quarterback who each week throws for 300 yards. You've got, the talent on defense is just not playing at the best level. I mean, they may lose Melvin Ingram, but you still have Joey Bosa. Derwin James is going to be coming back from injury. There's some good elements on the defensive line that's going to be there. And then, they've got, some good talent at tight end and at wide receiver. Keenan Allen's one of the best ball. So that's desirable. Then you got the Denver Broncos. We don't know about Drew Lock yet, and that's why they would be below the Chargers. But what they do have is, once Cortland Sutton comes back, one of the best three receiver groups in football. Hamler has to come on, but Jeff Judy is really good. Their offensive line has started to improve finally after years of failure. Garrett Bowles just got a 4-year contract at $17 million a year on an extension. So that takes care of the left tackle position. And particularly if they can get Von Miller back on defense, the defense should still be pretty good. So those are the two most desirable jobs. And also, the other thing is, do they have cap room? And each team now has about $20 million of cap room.
When you look at the Atlanta Falcons, you always think of Matt Ryan, Julio Jones. Now, that is a desirable place, you would think, but is it time to maybe freshen things up down there and go with a whole entire new look as an organization?
I don't think so. I think that, and that's not Arthur Blank's modus operandi. I mean, he wants to win, and he wants to win now. And really, when you think about this, because go look at the 5 worst teams in football with their record. Sure, 4 of the 5 made changes with coaches in the last 2 years, but they're still drafting in the top 5 or 6. That hasn't helped. And then you look at, if you tear it down, can you build it up? And, because one thing that the Falcons have, they've got the 3rd or 4th highest cap number right now, being over the cap. And you look at their contracts, and it's going to be hard to try to break that up and get those going. But you still have Matt Ryan. You still have Julio Jones. You still have some good parts on defense. And so you have probably of all the teams going to have job openings, Atlanta has, that's why I put them up as high as I did, one of the best chances to bounce back and start to win.
John, by the way, check out the article, the Washington Post, John Clayton, with all the different job openings and how desirable, because I think you might have to start entering the Eagles into that. But I want to ask you this question. There are a lot of older veteran quarterbacks right now. Pittsburgh, Roethlisberger, Rivers in Indianapolis, Brady in Tampa Bay, Breeze. Are those teams trade partners this offseason? In other words, they're too good. They're not going to draft a guy. So were they interested in trading for a guy like Wentz? Because we know they can't cut him. But would those type of teams be partners for possibly a trade?
Debatable, because each of those teams that you bring up that pretty much are on a 2-year cycle as far as these quarterbacks, because you figure it's 2 years for Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh, it's 2 years for Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. And right now it's not working out well for the Tampa Bay part of it because Tom Brady's not fitting into Bruce Arians' offense. And then Drew Brees right now, even he might retire, but they're a mess right now because again, New Orleans is going to be in the same situation as Philadelphia. They've got to do a complete redo because again, they're so far over the cap, and there's going to be so many cap casualties that there's going to be more losses for talent than gains. So I think you look at maybe San Francisco. That could be one that might be able to try to do something because right now I think they're reviewing Jimmy Garoppolo and are totally 100% sold on him. And so but I think that there's going to be more thinking this off season, and it has to be thought fast than any off season we had because again, with the cap's going to go down to $175 million, you've got major problems.
Big time. John Clayton, I'll leave you with this. You watched that game last night. I know you are very close to that Seattle organization, so you're watching closely. And I wonder, when I watch Seattle, their defense, have they gotten better, or are they gotten better because Philadelphia is that bad offensively? And are they a legitimate Super Bowl team, or are they 8-3 because they've gotten a chance to beat up on Philly, Dallas, Washington, that NFC East?
No, I mean, they're a legitimate Super Bowl team. Right now, they're not a legitimate Super Bowl defense, that's for sure, but they're a legitimate Super Bowl offense, particularly with DK Metcalf and, Tyler Lockett, Russell Wilson, the running game. That's legitimate. The defense right now, remember, they've gone through, they haven't faced very many winning teams, but, the teams that they faced at the beginning of the season, the first 5 games, all had decent quarterbacks, with maybe the exception with Miami and Ryan Fitzpatrick. But they've been able to get beat up for yards. But now this is the 4-week stretch that started last night that they can start to get better on defense. You can see their pass rush has improved. I mean, they go from a 28-sack season last year. Now they have 29, and literally they have about 19 in the last 4 or 5 games. Then you can see there's talent in the secondary. I mean, I've never seen really, Troy Polamalu will be the example. But Troy Polamalu has never had the sacks that Jamal Adams has. I mean, 7 games he's played, he's got 6.5 sacks. That's incredible. And so they're getting better. They're still not there yet. But in this 4-game stretch which started last night, they can get to the point when they play the Rams in Week 16, they can really start to say, okay, let's step up and win the division. They may not catch Green Bay. They might be able to catch New Orleans as far as the top seed. But no, they're really just a Super Bowl team.
Great, John Clayton, as always. Make sure you check out his Washington Post article on the most desirable jobs, and obviously that thing will be evolving. And Sal Powell said it yesterday right here. He doesn't think Pederson survives a 3 or 4 win season. Well, I don't see more than 4 wins on their schedule, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. John, it's always a pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
We love having John a part of the show, and he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.